Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the TraxionGG podcast, where we talk about racing games, esports, and sim racing. And we are joined this week by Anthony, or otherwise known as BushiAntz on YouTube and social media. How are you doing, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you for bringing me on, Tom.
No worries. It's a pleasure to have you here. So today we're going to be talking about the Formula One video games again. And obviously, because Formula One 2021 is the current one, most likely that game. It's also had some recent updates. So we're going to discuss that with a F1 game expert. But of course, also, I'd like to speak to Anthony about his F1 creator process as well. And also maybe online racing and things like this. So we'll cover a wide variety of F1 topics today. So first of all, Anthony, for those who don't know, who are you and what do you do?
Well, as you said, my name is Anthony, or BushiAntz, on YouTube and Twitch. And I mainly make just tutorial-based content to do with the F1 games. A lot of people, they come on and they see, esports drivers driving without assists, and they want to be able to do that themselves. So I usually just make videos around that. I also just make some Twitch highlights of just random stuff that happens in community races and stuff like that. I've made some league racing videos as well, and just general analysis on races that maybe some of the other esports drivers have done outside of F1 esports as well.
Yeah, so Anthony's a great resource for all things F1 game. Of course, TraxionGG is, but Anthony does just solely the Formula One games, right?
Yeah, pretty much just Formula One.
Yeah, so it really gets in-depth stuff. There's like track guides, setup advice, assist advice, all sorts of wonderful stuff on his YouTube channel, and obviously live streaming on Twitch. So what got you into the Formula One games in particular?
Well, it was a pretty quick process between me watching Formula One and getting into the Formula One games, because I am a pretty new fan considering how long F1 has been around. I've only been watching the sport since 2019, so I just went to a mate's house and he was watching, I think it was the German GP at the time, and it pretty much just instantly hooked with me. And I think around about that time, Drive to Survive was really popping, so I thought I'd give that a watch and just get a little bit more info on the sport. And as I was doing that, just as you do on YouTube, saw some F1 2019 footage, and that really started getting me into the games. I was like, okay, I need to play this game. I'm really enjoying Formula One right now. Let me get into the games. And the first couple of YouTubers that I can really pick out that got me hooked on the game, TRL Limitless, I used to watch him all the time. But I'd say the main person that got me into the games and also got me into making content on the games as well, probably Tom97, who
yes,
yeah, he's a pretty awesome guy. And watching some of his like career mode videos and stuff really got me into it.
Yeah, that's nice. That's an interesting case study there of how the games and the Netflix series and the live coverage all groups together and becomes one really cool sport to follow, I think. Like,
yeah, 100%.
Both the games and the Netflix series, like you mentioned there, have done really good things for the sport, in my opinion. This is evidence of that. So when you first started playing F1 2019, then was it easy to get up to speed quickly, or did you find it quite a challenge?
No, it was definitely a challenge at first. I think personally, with all the information that's out now, with the fact that you've got so many esports drivers making content as well, I definitely think it's easier to get up to pace now than it was back then, because that's the whole reason I started the channel in the first place. It was just because there was a lot of videos that I wanted to make that I didn't see around. There's a lot of small details when it comes to stuff that I'm really into. I really like the small details, and I didn't see that a lot on YouTube. So I thought I would be that person to supply that for people.
Right. So you spotted a gap, so to speak, because there is a lot of Formula One parlance or terms that are just used for F1 or F1 games. Yeah. And especially F1 games, I think. There are so many modes now and settings. Like, I'm into it, but I feel like, oh, hang on a minute, what if you're new to the game? And that's where YouTube comes in, right? And Twitch, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely say that with what Codemasters are doing, it's definitely easier to get into the F1 games than it is more sim-based titles like iRacing and ACC. But it is still a challenge if you're like brand new, never really into racing games and stuff like that.
So how do you transition then from being, a new fan of the sport, watching the Netflix show, playing the game, to then going, right, do you know what? I'm going to put a lot of time into putting this on YouTube. What was what was you said there that it was because you spotted there was a gap and the small details weren't necessarily in the videos, but what was the process like of going, okay, I've got to use this equipment I've got to edit some videos?
Well, I already had some of the equipment already, because I ran my own podcast beforehand. It was nothing to do with sports or anything. It was more SEO related and stuff like that, because I was really big on SEO a few years ago. So I had like the microphone and the camera and stuff like that. So yeah, I just thought, why not just get stuck into making videos? I had made videos before on stuff like Call of Duty and other games like that. So yeah, it was a lot easier for me to get back into it than it would be for someone to get into it for the first time. But it still had some challenges. My PC wasn't the best, so I couldn't make like face cam videos. It took hours to render videos as well, so it was tough at first.
So how do you keep thinking of new ideas and new ways of creating content now, a couple of years later?
Well, I definitely say at first, when people, it's a big barrier to overcome when you don't have a lot of subscribers and you're just thinking about what type of videos to make. For me, when I was in that situation, it was easier to just make content that I wanted to see. But now I think it's a lot easier once you get a certain amount of viewers coming in, especially regulars, because they will come and they'll suggest videos to you that they want to see. And a lot of the time, the stuff that they're suggesting, it goes along the lines of what you were thinking as well, because they sort of learn your tendencies, what you like to upload, what they want to see from you and stuff like that. So yeah, now I'll definitely say it's a lot easier because I do get suggestions from people in Discord, people on Twitch and stuff like that.
Right. So the community's been built up to a point where they're almost helping you out to an extent in terms of, oh, we'd love to see this. That's cool. But as you say, it can be quite difficult at the start when you're on ground level, right? And there's no one else there. Have you got any sort of tips or advice to people just starting out in like racing game content, perhaps?
I'd say my main tip in general when it comes to YouTube, especially at the beginning, is to experiment as much as you can. Just upload whatever you feel like uploading, and you'll start to notice some trends. You'll start to notice how people react to certain types of content. And then if there's stuff that's working, you could just double down on that. Whereas if stuff isn't working, you could just stop making those type of videos.
Yeah, that's sound advice, isn't it? I think the key thing there is get something out there at least, and then you can see if it's well received or not.
Yeah, because that's, in my opinion, that's the main reason people don't see any success with YouTube. And success obviously is a objective word. I mean, even 100 subscribers, I would consider a success. And there's a lot of people who don't even reach that, and it's because they try and make things perfect from the get-go. Just start, and you can always learn from there.
Yeah, and like you say as well, listen to any comments or feedback. That can be a big help, can't it? Yeah. So I'd like to talk about just really quickly on the video side, your first video that you uploaded for Formula One, and then also what your most popular video is. So the first one in 2019, it's like talking about the Formula One game as a new fan, and in that you mentioned, okay, you don't have a steering wheel yet. So what was the first steering wheel you got? And do you still play with a controller or what steering wheel have you got now?
Funny enough, the wheel that I first got is still the wheel that I'm using now.
Oh, nice.
It's the Thrustmaster TX wheelbase. Right. And I've got just a Formula One style attachment to it. I don't really play with controller much, to be honest. I definitely think that I lose like a good couple seconds a lap if I play on a controller. I actually, when I started streaming on Twitch earlier on this year, my first stream was literally the worst pad player on earth, trying to get to grips with the game. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't say I'm an expert on the pad compared to the wheel.
You can be relatively quick with a pad, but I'm with you. If you want to step it up a notch, this game is approachable with a pad, but you need a wheel, I think.
Oh no, I 100% agree with that. There are some players out there. Two that really stick out to me is Lewis Welch and V-Sira. They still play on the controller, and they're some of the fastest guys I've ever seen. On the game. So it's definitely possible.
I don't know how they do it though. They must have incredible dexterity with their fingers.
Oh, 100%. Me, I'm useless. So there's no chance of me being quick on the controller. But
me too.
I think with the wheel, it just because with the controller you're using your thumb to turn, whereas with the wheel you're using both of your arms. It's just a lot easier.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then on your most popular video, I think it was in 2020, where it's beginner assist advice, which is very, very useful. How does it feel when you have a video that sort of blows up in that style?
Well, that was the first video that really took off for my channel. When I uploaded that video, I still only had about 180 subscribers at the time. So it was definitely a new experience for me, seeing the views climb and climb, just getting the feedback from people on what they were thinking. F1 2020, I think, came out at around about a good time because it was really in the heat of, everything to do with COVID and stuff. So there was a lot of people getting into the sport, a lot of people getting into the games as well. So I definitely think it was the perfect time to make those sort of videos. And I think that's why my channel really took off in a way.
Yeah, and then I guess you've been making regular content since, so it's not just a case of resting on that one video, right? It's trying to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to YouTube, even if you've got 100,000, a million subscribers, it's all about experimenting and seeing what new things you can try, what works, what doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of new things, then, excellent segue there, I thought. This is the first F1 game where there's been new tracks for free after release. So last year in 2020, there was Hanoi, where that was new from the start, and then it was never used in real life. Kind of awkward. Yeah. Now we've got...
Thank God.
Sorry?
Thank God. Yeah, thank God. That track sucks.
Yeah. Do you know, I think I might have said, it's not too bad at the start, and then everyone ate me alive, and they were probably right.
Yeah, nah, I've never liked it since the beginning.
But hopefully, Algarve International, or what it's known as Portimao, and Imola are more to your liking. What do you think to these new additions?
I definitely think they're both really good tracks. Obviously, F1 did race at Imola, and I think, I'm not sure if they've raced at Portimao before. But,
No.
Yeah, I like both tracks. I've played both tracks on Assetto Corsa, and they were amazing there. And coming into the F1 games, I definitely thought worse in terms of the tracks, because I know that not everything is laser scanned in there, but they've done really well with those tracks. And I would have to say, for me personally, I prefer Portimao over Imola, but I know a lot of people prefer Imola. For me, it's the elevation changes. I really enjoy them, especially when you're racing wheel to wheel with someone, just going up and down, moving side to side like a roller coaster, as Lando would say. But yeah, I just enjoy that.
Yeah, for me, I really enjoy both those track additions, and I feel that probably they're some of the best track recreations that Codemaster's done in a very long time.
Oh, 100%. And I think Zandvoort is there as well.
Yeah, that's fair. And I feel like now I wish, okay, let's open a can of worms. Can you maybe redo or revise some of the existing ones? Because these are really cool.
I was hoping that they were going to, in this game, redo Spain and Australia based on the real life changes. It doesn't seem as if they're doing it for this game, though. We're going to have to wait for next year's.
I think we both really like this game, but obviously when you play it a lot, there are a few small things that you kind of wish would be improved, that they get the feedback for. And I'm not a huge fan of like how they do Hungaroring or Spa. There's some like square curbs and stuff like this. And I was like, right, Algarve and Imola have shown that they can really do well when they start scratch. So maybe next year I hope that I think they improve it.
I think it's just because they reuse the track models. So now that they've got a little bit more money coming in and obviously more technology, I'm going to assume that next year's game is going to have a lot better track models.
I hope so. Yeah. And it is a yearly release. It's very easy to forget that, right? A lot of people on the internet see comments. And it's like the workload to get that done.
I mean, I'm definitely an advocate of that as well. I'm always complaining about the game. I complain about the game because I like it so much. So.
Yeah, exactly. It comes from a place of passion and interest, right? Yeah. Where you want them to have some feedback to improve each year, right? Yeah. Speaking of newer things, I was really excited by those two new tracks. Are you excited for Jeddah at all? Is anyone excited for this Jeddah track? I don't know.
I did say on Twitter that I would have preferred if Istanbul was added than Jeddah. And I think it's just because of my experience with Istanbul over Jeddah, because I've still not really seen too much about Jeddah. And there's actually a reason for that. I wanted to sort of showcase what it's like to essentially go into a track blind and learn it without the racing line.
Cool.
An F1 game, because I know a lot of people do struggle with that. So that's why I've not really tried to look at stuff to do with Jeddah. So I'm going basically blind and
interesting.
See how I go with it.
Oh well, I'll definitely watch your video on that because that sounds like a different angle. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think with the Turkey thing, maybe it could be just a case of timing, right? I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean Jeddah, they probably had the track layout for a long time, direct from F1, and I think Turkey was another last-minute addition, wasn't it? But I'm with you on that. Turkey should be on paper a much more fun track to play. Maybe if it's included as a bonus next year or something, I don't know. That would be really cool.
One thing I have said is I think Codemasters really need to continue on with what they've done this year in terms of adding tracks. Even if they do add a paywall with it next year,
right?
There's still going to be people who want to get new tracks coming in. So because it does spice up the content and it does keep people playing for longer. So if they come out with DLC tracks each year, I definitely think that it would be a good angle for them.
That's interesting. I would definitely pay for, I've said this far too many times, but some classic tracks. Like,
I mean, I would love Hungaroring, but that's my favorite track personally.
Right. Yeah. Just old variants and old layouts and stuff. And all this stuff would totally. Because it's difficult because they have to be within the F1 license and calendar, right? But if you come back with some retro stuff, that's a nice way of doing some paid DLC, in my opinion. But we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Is there anything else that you think that the F1 games should improve on in the future? I know there's a lot of smaller stuff, right? And it's tricky, but
for me as a content creator, especially with Twitch, Twitch is obviously very interactive with the viewers, and you do open lobbies and stuff. For me personally, the biggest thing that needs to be added is cross-platform, being able to play with people from different platforms as well.
Right.
It just bring a whole new level to people who are content creators.
Interesting. So I believe at the minute, if you have, let's say, a PS4 and a PS5, you can play cross-generation.
Yes.
And if you've got an Xbox One, Xbox Series, but you can't play like what you're suggesting, which is like someone on PC against someone on Xbox against someone on PlayStation. Right. Yeah, I think that's been a trend in gaming in recent years, right? Interestingly, there is a Codemasters game out there that does do that because Dirt 5 added.
I've heard about that with Dirt 5. So...
Yeah, but it's a very different game, and even weirder, it runs on a different game engine to Formula One. It runs in its own thing.
Yeah. So, but I'm hoping that they do bring some form of it soon, but we'll see.
That'll be really cool because then the whole league racing scene would almost change, or
I think it would. Yeah,
it could grow. Are you into much league racing? I've seen you do some streams and stuff and hosting some online lobbies.
At the moment, I'm on break.
Right.
Just because of how multiplayer has been on this year's games, definitely not been the best, and it's kind of ruined the experience of league racing for me. So I'm on a hiatus right now, but I've been league racing pretty much since I've started making videos. So
when you were league racing, was it enjoyable to compete against other people? Is that something that is good for content as well?
Yeah, no, 100% it is. Whenever I play games, if I'm into it, I'm just naturally going to progress to that point where I want to face other people. I think you can only get so far racing against AI, racing against other people and trying to outsmart them in different ways is definitely a lot more fun. So for most people, league racing is a natural progression once they've had enough of my team and GP mode.
Yeah, so I did see one of your videos where you were trying to do one of the sort of the esports qualifiers. Has it been? Have you ever been tempted to try and get into it on a esports level, like maybe through the Challenger series or the time trials or something like this?
Not necessarily. I mainly make those videos to educate new people on how to get into F1 esports and just for fun to see where I'm at compared to the esports guys. For me, the main reason I don't want to be in esports is I just don't have the same mindset as esports drivers. The amount of hours that they put in the game, I just can't do that. For me, I've got a lot of other stuff that I would rather be doing than playing the game for like 8 hours a day and stuff like that. So yeah,
it's mad. Like I've spoken to a few drivers and their workload is like 8 to 12 hours every day.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh man.
I don't know how they do that. I'm tired right now just thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, well, I put so many hours into my team, and then they're like, oh, no, we do that probably every day. And it's like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Another level.
But, I mean, it shows because look how close F1 esports is.
Right, exactly. And that's not through like balance of performance or any weird stuff like this. Like they're so competitive and their setup. They practice so much for those setups that in the end, actually, the best do rise to the top, and that's why you see a close field. Right? Have you been watching the recent season?
Yeah, I've been actually doing watch-alongs on Twitch. I'm going to be doing some today, actually.
Yeah, next round
I'm looking
today.
forward to it.
Yeah, it's been a close season. I don't know if you've got who do you think will win at this point? Mia looks like he's very quick again.
I think Yano's definitely got the momentum, especially since he won last year. He knows what it takes to win. So he's got the biggest advantage out of anyone. But the field is a lot closer even to last year. So I definitely think it's going to put him to the test. If he can win again, then I definitely think that even though Brendan's won twice, because the field is so close now, I definitely think that would put Yano above everybody so far.
Right. Because if he beats a more like a really competitive grid, is that what you're saying? Maybe like it shows that.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Brendan is amazing, fantastic, very quick at the game. But obviously, he won his 2 championships when the field was less competitive. So that's why I would sort of put Yano just slightly above Brendan in terms of the champions we've had so far.
Yeah, so just for those listening, the time we're recording is on it's on the day of round 4 and 5, and then tomorrow is round 6. Is that correct?
Yep.
So it's really like compacted, strange calendar because we've got 3 races within 2 days. It's kind of hard to follow, I guess, in some respects.
For some people, I say it is, yeah.
Yeah. Anything on the F1 esports side and knowing the game's performance online that you'd like to see take a step forward? Because to me, actually, I watched those streams and they are really well presented and commentated to put together, and some of the racing can be good. Is that what you think as well, or you have a different view? I don't know. Put you on the spot there.
I do think that F1 esports right now is a good product. There's definitely a commentator that I would love to see commentate on the F1 esports games, George Morgan. I'd love to see him commentate one of those games. No offense to any of the other guys who do the commentating, of course, but his energy that he brings to league racing videos, league racing just in general, I'd love to see him on there. Other than that, I think for me, like I understand why they don't, but I would love if they let the drivers stream their point of views. I'd love to see that. I see why they don't, because obviously other teams can get an advantage, and obviously it takes away from the product itself because people will be watching the players directly. But it would be awesome if you could see, someone like Lucas or someone like Yano streaming their POV and just seeing how they cope with the pressure.
That would be cool. Maybe that's something they integrate into what's it called, the F1 TV, the subscription service or something.
They could do. They could do. That would be awesome.
Put it behind a paywall. I'm sure if you're also getting some Formula One on boards as well, it would all fit together, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's cool. So you mentioned George there. You've been watching PSGL. He's been doing amazing things over there, right?
I've watched a good couple of races for PSGL. I had to miss a lot of them sadly because a lot of the time I was racing in WR at the same time. So
right.
But since I've stepped back from league racing, I've been able to really get into it, and I just love the energy that George brings to the commentary side of it.
He's very passionate, isn't he? And that's really cool. And it's good for the Formula One game to have someone championing it and trying to do something professional with it, which is cool. All right, so that's a lot about content creation and the F1 game and the online world and esports. But what about Formula One this season, as in like the real world motorsport? Have you been enjoying the year?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of people who've been vocal about how they compare this season to previous seasons and stuff, and I can't really say much on it because I've only been watching 3 seasons at this point, or 2.5 really, to be honest. I'll definitely say for me, since I've started watching, it's definitely been the best season, and I just hope that they can really close the field, just have it a little bit more competitive, because for me, that's why F1 esports is so exciting to watch, because everyone's so close.
Yeah, it's an element of unpredictability, right, which makes it even more exciting. Well, it is for me. I don't know about you. When at the minute you don't know going into each track if it's going to be a Red Bull or a Mercedes AMG that's going to be the quickest or the setup's right.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the previous race at Cota. When you had Lewis, trying to catch up to Max, and you didn't know whether he would be able to do it or not. That's the excitement that people get out of Formula One. And if more of the cars were closer together, I definitely think we'd get a lot better races, even at tracks where people would consider them to be, not great overtaking tracks.
Yeah, it's a shame you've missed out on. I don't want to be controversial, but like 2009 to like 2011, that was a good time because McLaren and Mercedes sometimes and Red Bull and Ferrari, they could probably win each race. Yeah. And next year, then with the new rules, is that what you'd like to see?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'd like to see the gap between the top teams and the midfield closer as well, because again, that will just bring an element of surprise. When you see, especially Pierre Gasly at Monza, when you saw him won, that was just like, oh my god, wow! It was something
amazing, right? Yeah,
yeah.
So, who do you think will win the championship this year? If you were a betting person, not that I advocate it, who would you put your money on for the drivers' championship?
Well, especially after Kota, I think this is Max's championship to lose.
Right. He's got a bit of a gap now.
And yeah, I mean, Max's consistency is just insane. So it's gonna be very hard for Lewis and Mercedes to really pull back some of those points, especially with how consistent he has been, even when he's had unfortunate stuff happen to him. What was it? Was it Hungary? I think when he ended up losing like half of the left side of his car or something. I mean, he still managed to pull a couple points out of that. So
it's also easy to forget he lost some points when he had like a puncture in Azerbaijan in the lead.
Yeah,
which is an unlucky scenario, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really mind as long as it's not decided going into the final race. Like, you just want a decider. That's what I would like. But I have a feeling if we were having a bet there, I would go Lewis. I just think, right, he's got the experience towards the end now in these final races of being in that scenario before. That might help.
Yeah.
Ultimately, car speed is where it's at. But
well, I mean, Max hasn't won a championship yet, so I mean, in terms of that, I would definitely say that Lewis has the upper hand. But you can see from just the way Max presents himself on track and off track that he definitely has a confidence of someone who's won a championship, which is kind of strange since he's not won one yet.
Yeah. And I think maybe an element that helps towards that is like whoever he keeps close to him and the team, they're all pushing behind Max, right? I don't think Red Bull even cares about the constructors at this point. They seem to like sacrifice Perez on the strategy as and when, right?
Yeah, so, just to give him that championship.
And that gives him the confidence, I think. So, yeah, interesting. I can't wait for these final few races.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, do you have a favorite driver or team? Or do you just like the sport in general?
I don't think I've watched the sport long enough to have a favorite driver. I'm a very neutral fan when it comes to it. Usually when people ask me on Twitch, I'd say Lando just because I know the most about him. Obviously, he streams sometimes and stuff like that. So, yeah, I'll probably say Lando to answer the question.
Do you think things like Twitch streaming and YouTube have more of an importance for Formula One now, especially with this younger generation of drivers? Because Lando, for example, you mentioned him. He's on there, and I think he understands this space that we operate in with gaming, especially as well. And so, is it pleasing to see that drivers are actually getting involved as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot about how drivers used to be in the sport and how it was sort of very difficult to sort of get to know them, get in touch with them, and it just makes them feel not relatable. Whereas with the younger generation, the fact that they're on Twitch, you get to see them outside of all of that. You get to see them be themselves and stuff. It really makes you feel as if you do know more about them. And I definitely think it's a good business move alongside just a good general move as well. Because if you've seen what Lando has done business-wise and marketing-wise as well, I mean, you could argue he could retire from Formula One now and still be quite a big entity.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, it's maybe something for him to fall back on, and hopefully in many years' time after Formula One's ended, he could still still do it. But also, it's just good for fan engagement, right? Gets everybody more involved.
I mean, Lewis is kind of like the opposite of that, where he's not as active, but he's still like a household name. Like I was speaking to my wife about this not too long ago. If you was to speak to someone who's never watched Formula One and you ask them who Max Verstappen is, probably might not know. It might be a 50-50. But if you ask them who Lewis Hamilton is, chances are they would know.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, and I think Lewis he's not on Twitch, right? He's not doing esports tournaments, but he is doing like the bigger media stuff, right, outside of F1. The big like magazine front covers or the chat shows, and that's a good thing for Formula One, right? If it gets a whole new audience,
I think more drivers should definitely look into that sort of mindset. You know, not necessarily just. I mean, you can care about the sport that you're driving in, but definitely have something that you can fall back on in case something happens, or once you retire, there's still things that you can do.
Absolutely, that's cool. So speaking of things you can do, we're coming towards the end of our time here. Thanks very much, Anthony.
No
what's next for you on the agenda in terms of content creation? You know, Discord, Twitch, YouTube. Anything in particular?
For me, I want to put more time into Twitch. I definitely want to start making content more on the entertainment side rather than the tutorial-based side. I've definitely been enjoying editing like stream highlights and making, you know, clips, TikToks and stuff like that to do with that. So I'm definitely going to be on Twitch a lot more. I'm using F1 Esports as a sort of gateway to dabble into watch-alongs and stuff like that. I might potentially start doing that for the real life races as well eventually. So we'll see what happens with that. And yeah, I'm just trying to build the community to be more of a, instead of, you know, just people coming in and be like, okay, this setup, that setup. I just want to build a community of people who enjoy sports and talk about sports.
Oh, well, that sounds great. I mean, ultimately, that's what it's all about. A community with a mutual interest.
Yeah.
That will certainly keep the interest going, won't it? And it also feels like you're providing something to them, and they're helping you out as well. So
yeah,
I wish you all the best with that.
Thank you very much.
So people can find you on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Discord. Did you mention TikTok there as well?
TikTok as well, yeah.
Yeah.
I have an Instagram, but I never use it. So
fair enough.
Don't bother with that.
And is it BushiAntz on everything, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
BushiAntz for those listening.
Yep.
So search that and you'll find a deluge of interesting Formula One game content. All right.
And even if you don't like the videos, still subscribe.
Okay. Yeah. Just hit that button. It all helps. Cool. Well, speaking of subscribing, we'll wrap this up now. Thank you very much for joining us, Anthony. And if you're watching on the Traxion YouTube channel, leave a comment below if you've been watching any of his videos. And if you've got any cool ideas for Formula One content, I'm sure it'll be open. Yeah, exactly. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do follow or subscribe because it helps the podcast out, and then we can do more cool interviews like this one. And obviously, don't forget to visit TraxionGG on a daily basis. All right. Thank you very much, Anthony.
Thank you very much as well.
And keep it pinned.